Dear Lord, I hate this thing.
ShinRobjira.
Today we're going to be talking about the Bandai movie monster series Hibiya Godzilla Square Shin Godzilla statue figure. My first, I think, Godzilla store exclusive figure happens to be a whole charcoal brick in the shape of Shin Godzilla. The figure is based on the Shin Godzilla statue that replaced the Heisei Godzilla statue in Hibiya Square in 2018. With this came the renaming of the area to Godzilla Square, and also the release of this lovely solid dude and his X Plus counterpart. Okay, you got me. I really don't hate this thing, but when it comes to Shin Godzilla figures that are actually based on physical things that exist in the real world, I'd have to say my beloved meatloaf chunk over here definitely takes the cake as the better of the two. I don't mean to start the video off with such a negative interpretation, but let me just talk about the tag first. On this lovely red backing tag over here, we have an actual picture of said Shin Godzilla statue, looking really, really nice. 2018 Godzilla Square. I do believe that probably says Hibiya Godzilla Square. Godzilla Zo! And on the back, we have the usual dorsal fins, Bandai Movie Monster Series, but we also have this, the Godzilla Square logo. That is such a cool inclusion to this tag. Opening up this magical book of sorcery, we see a bunch of stuff in here that we normally see with Movie Monster Series tags, and that's about it. You know this song and dance by now. Since he is an exclusive, we're going to have to double sleeve him. We must protect Shin GOJI statue at all costs. With that out of the way, I could finally talk about the one thing on this figure that I'm really not all that crazy about, and that's just the paint. I just want to say this now. Obviously, I am very aware that this is based on a statue that really doesn't have any color to it. It's not the lack of color that bums me out. It's just how they handled it with this choice of paint. Now, as we all know, Bandai, they're titans when it comes to detail, and that doesn't really change here with this figure, but this paint really doesn't do this detail very much justice. Yes, it is really cool that you can see his little raisin eyeball on his head, but I don't know, man, just something about this paint job over time really just kind of soured with me, and this was a very recent discovery on my part. You know, upon getting this figure in for the first time, I was all hyped up. It's like, oh, my first Godzilla store exclusive ever. This is awesome. Oh my god, it's Shin Godzilla. It's a new Bandai Movie Monster Series mold from Shin Godzilla. I'm losing my shit. And again, I do like this figure quite a lot. It's just, I feel like a little bit more effort could have been put into it. You know me, I love to overly talk about paint, but this is pretty much it. The only slight variation in paint that we're going to get, and it might just be a paint house defect, is over here at the tip of the tail where it looks like the paint didn't fully hit the tip of the tail. And it's just on that one side. And it kinda makes Godzilla's tip of the tail look like a, one of those eraser figures. Yes, it is nice that he is glossy and shiny and he glistens in the light, all whilst being in a very epic pose. But I'ma be real with you here, fam. I'm gonna be Stone Cold Steve Austin with you here. I really do think Bandai could have done something a little bit more noteworthy when it comes to the paint. What? And honestly, I feel like the mold could have been a little bit better to accommodate for a paint job like this, so paint's going to get a half a star from me. What? Now we can talk about the detail because there's quite a lot of it. Yeah, I ain't a fan of the paint, but I am a fan of this detail, and the detail is exuberant, fam! Godzilla's dorsal fins are just coated in the detail, yet again, looking like a death metal nuclear tree forest. I love it. I don't know what it is about the skin. Yes, it's very Shin Godzillian and such, but something about it almost gives off that very statuesque feel. There's a weird texture to it that just comes off very man-made. Now, this might just be me looking a little bit too deep into the detail here, but that is something Bandai would definitely do. Almost as if they took a picture of the statue and just made a figure out of that statue. I don't know how the statue was created, if it was used with 3D modeling, or if it was sculpted or whatever, but this thing has something that other Shin Godzilla figures don't have. Take this lovely pained individual, for example. You look at the skin and it's nice, it's textury, but it's also rather smooth looking. looking for the most part, right? But then you look at this guy, and the skin almost has this stubbly, almost stone look to it. And that's actually the most apparent on the tail over here. But I digress. Yeah, I'm gonna stop here with this kind of talk. I'm starting to sound like a conspiracy theorist. It's either there or it isn't. I see it, you might not. Moving on. Something that I'm very much impressed with when it comes to this figure is just the fact that you can see so much detail on the inside of his mouth. That's still impressive, I don't care what anybody says. And even though the bottom of the mouth features what looks like a little bit less of it, you can still make out a couple of different bumps and grooves in there. The teeth, unfortunately, are a little bit harder to really notice. And yeah, I can see them, and I know a few of you will be able to as well, but this kind of be looking like Shin Goji over here is Shin Grampy Goji and forgot to put in his dentures. But moving on down to the neck. What the fuck? Was Godzilla attacked by a friggin' octopus? You see this shit, bruh? He's got weird little suction cup circles all over here. What the hell? Oh, he's got more over here too. What the heck is that all about? The chest looks amazing. It reminds me very much of the poster art for Alien Covenant. Although I will say this figure is definitely a lot more consistent than that movie was. I love the way that the major outline of his chest just twists with the pose of his body. It looks very, very nice. It almost looks like his rib cage is fully exposed. There's a lot of skin crawling on top of more skin. It's a very, very, very cool looking thing. And then moving into the lower torso, into the crotch, we're kind of going to get the same thing. But below that, though, it's a little bit more of the same thing with the legs and the rest of the tail, kind of looking like jet black Willy Wonka in the chocolate factory's opening. Granted, that's really not a bad thing because the details shine something fierce. I especially love that Bandai were kind enough to include all the extra toenails on Shin's feet over here. Both feet will be outfitted with the extra digits. And the detail, bro. Jeez. Not too much going on the bottom of the feet, although there is detail to be seen. It's just, you know, not really all that impressive. Moving on to the bottom of the tail, Godzilla's skin is starting to look like some kind of sports ball. But the ridges of the tail are still there, the spikes for the tail are still there, and it all looks good, yes. And the further up you go towards the tip of the tail, the detail looks fine. No major discernible features can really be seen over here. I think that's mostly just because of the paint. I mean, you can clearly see some things over here, but it's nothing that I would call groundbreaking, you know? And moving back down onto the spikes over here, everything is as it should be. The spikes kind of disappear for a little bit. They turn into tiny, tiny little nubs. And then we move on to some more dorsal fin shots over here. They all look great. Well, some of them look great. You got this ugly duckling over here. It's just every time I look at this thing, it reminds me of myself. Round, shiny, and lumpy. And we are going to get a couple more dorsal fins over here at Shin Godzilla's neck, but that really isn't a complaining point because everything else looks as good as it does. Even this little row over here that underlines the dorsal fins, it's very nicely done. And sweet Jesus, I've gone all this time without talking about Shin Godzilla's arms. Yes, this is definitely a downgrade from the standard movie monster series Shin Godzilla arms. Granted, it is nice that they included the extra finger on there, and it is nice that you can see some of the detail, but for the most part, these fingers are kind of duddy. Not bad, just not great in comparison. Detail is going to get a solid star. While I do feel some of it could have been a little bit better, I don't actually feel that's the mold's fault. I feel like had the paint been something else, it would have looked a little bit better, but in hindsight, what else could they have really done with this? Highlights of gray? Not like a light gray, but a really dark gray to kind of like accentuate on certain points? Sure, but I guess that wouldn't be accurate. And now it's time for articulation, and I get a feeling I know what some of you are thinking. Why in the heck is something that's canonically based on something that can't move have articulation? Because Band does what Nintendo don't. The arms could move, all the way around like so. I was a little more nervous to do this back in the day, but nowadays he moves just fine. And the legs can move all the way around as well. Little on the stiff side. Got a feeling that's due to the paint, but for the most part, they move all the way around. Not that it matters because this figure's based off of a statue that has its own pose. So Bandai kinda pulled the Playmates before Playmates even touched the IP by giving this figure pre-posed legs. Oh yeah. Granted, you can still move his legs in whatever way and he'll still stand however you want him to, but for the most part, you're gonna want to keep the legs at a certain angle each. That way it properly mirrors that of the statue. And you can be helped with this by looking at the bottom of the feet. As you can see on this foot, it's mostly smoothened out between these two toes and this one toe. That means you're going to want to balance the figure on this major part of the foot, as everything else kind of just slopes down from here, and this toe isn't even flattened on the bottom. And this foot over here has mostly the same thing going on. We all know that Shin Godzilla's heels really don't touch the ground in the movie, so he's going to be standing on his toes. And it's gonna look a little bit like this. It's not the most flawless execution, but it's still a pretty cool inclusion. Articulation's going to get a solid start from me. Honestly, I remember looking at this thing and really not expecting much. I was expecting maybe the arms. I was actually pretty surprised that the legs could move, I think. This was a very long time ago. But anyway, on to the last thing that I always do in videos now. Size comparison time. Small, medium, large, related. The paint could have been better, but as always, the details shine something fierce. As an exclusive, I feel the same way I did about Retro Color 54 and Heavy Paint Applications Ghidorah. But overall, I can't help but love seeing an alternate mold of Shin Godzilla sitting on my shelf looking absolutely spiffy. It would be rather cool to see Bandai kind of just retool the paint job of this figure and make it into a more hyper-accurate representation of Shin Godzilla for the movie monster series. While I am happy with the standard mold we've been getting of Shin Godzilla, seeing, let's say, Heavy Paint Applications Shin Godzilla's paint job on a figure like this, ooh. Please. Definitely not my favorite movie monster series figure, but it's still a figure that I'm very much glad that I have in my collection. As a massive Shin Godzilla fan yearning to complete his movie monster series collection of Shin Godzilla figures, this was very much a must. Anywho, why don't you let me know in the comment section below if you own this figure, how do you personally feel about it? And if you don't own this, would you want to pick this up? Because if you do, I mean, again, it's a good figure. I just have my little grievances with it is all. It's rather wild how long ago 2018 feels. But anyway, I will see you all again on Friday with hopefully the Mezco Toys Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Round 1 box set. Hope you enjoyed this here video. Remember to leave a like, comment, subscribe, favorite, ring the bell, and all that good stuff. Do all that, please. Not gonna lie, just talking about this guy's got me itching to talk about all the other movie monster series Shin Godzilla figures again. Maybe for the 6th anniversary. We'll see. Peace!